Lightning looks, then swift.
In a game where there was little riding on it in terms of the semi-finals, as it turns out, the defending champions have at least finished on a sweet note. They've beaten Pakistan of England by 93 runs. You can't help but be underwhelmed by what could only be a dejected feeling for both Babar and Butler, who this time last year were pumped up for another ICC final. This time both of their teams have fallen well short of the semi-finals. We will look back though at England's takeaways from this, Pakistan as well, with Steve Harmison and Urooj Mumtaz on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. Just a quick reminder of how things went down. 337. It's another good score from England. They managed 338 against the Dutch, 360 plus against Bangladesh. It just didn't happen enough ever since that opening game against New Zealand at Ahmedabad. In response though, Pakistan found their way to 244 because the lower order decided to have some fun. Haris Ruff registering his highest ODI score, but that's not the kind of news you want. Babar got a start and didn't go on. Salman Ali Agha with his first World Cup 50. And David Willey, what a lovely story and a sweet send-off for him from this format. 3 for 56, handy runs, and that is him signing off from this format of the game. England won by 93 runs. Yes, we will discuss a path forward, perhaps, and where it went wrong. Things that we haven't said before. Stephen Harmison and Urooj Mumtaz, that'll be a challenge. But in the end, this is still an important game. Champions Trophy qualification sealed for one, Harmy. And I guess going back on that flight now with 6 points as against 4, somewhere, at least it's easier to draw a path forward.
Yeah, I think for the team, they will not look anything too much into what the victory meant on the day. I think as a team, especially, a team full of individuals who have been great for English cricket, I think it was important that they finished on a high. They did not want to leave World Cup cricket or ODI 50 over cricket in such a way which, a theme from what the tournament's been, which has been disappointment. So team finishes on a high, individuals finish on a high, and yes, it's been a poor tournament, but there's some careers come to an end, and there've been stellar careers that have been. Yeah, and I guess it was easier for England to have their eye off the ball in this game. They weren't. Pakistan had more to play for it, in the morning at least. Could have easily had just a completely forgettable performance, players already thinking about going home, and this could have been a win for Pakistan. So on that front, did we see perhaps the most professional or efficient English performance today? Yeah, I think so. I think what we've seen was players that didn't want to finish on that disappointment. They wanted to finish their days on a high, and I think that's the most important thing that came out of it. Josh Buttler, when he won the toss, that was the game over. Really, the game was over once Josh Buttler had won the toss. He could see it in Babar's face. He could actually see it in the embarrassment of Josh's face when he won the toss. He looked at Babar as to say, "I'm sorry, but unfortunately, I'm going to have a bat." That's just obviously the way it was. Once that happened, it was about individuals on England's side leaving this World Cup and their 50 over careers on a professional and good performance, and I think they did that. Yeah.
Before I go to Urooj Mumtaz, let's just look at that points table, because what Steve Harmison is saying is, yes, spot on. Once there was no possibility, even if it was a remote possibility, but once England batted first, Pakistan were never going to get anywhere near competing for that net run rate. As it turns out though, the top 4 have distance between them on points itself and not net run rate. So Pakistan will finish 5th, joint on points with Afghanistan. England ensure that they get the Champions Trophy berth, but for an extraordinary upset from the Dutch against India, it does look like Sri Lanka and the Netherlands would miss out on that event. We'll come to that later, but let's go to Urooj Mumtaz for her opening comments. Do you somewhere sense that perhaps whatever motivation there could have been, Urooj, went from the first innings itself, from the result of the toss, or is that not a good enough excuse? You would have still wanted Pakistan to at least get to the 10-point mark, finish on a high. We didn't quite see the best of them again today, did we?
Yeah, Raunak, I mean, it's been disappointing the entire journey. And you're playing professional cricket, you're playing the pinnacle of white ball cricket, the One Day World Cup. That can't be an excuse that the toss didn't go your way. It was a meek, timid end to this World Cup. There was not one player in that batting lineup who stuck their necks out and said, come on, let's have a go at this. We really have nothing to lose. And it was going to take some sort of a batting effort to chase this, with especially the quality of spin in Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali, who bowled exceptionally. But I don't think that can be taken as an excuse. The toss is never in your control, and like I said before, it should have never come down to this point.
Yes.
Pakistan left it all too little, all too late, and obviously the net run rate conversation would have only come into play had they gotten these 2 points, irrespective of any other thing. So just from the very first game, it's just been a spiral down, barring maybe a couple of good shows. That also in a department out of the three in the totality of the World Cup so far. So I think lots to look ahead in terms of resolving and rectifying, and probably Pakistan needing to scrap the Pakistan way of playing cricket and sort of abreast and become relevant with what the modern teams and the top four at least are doing.
Let's go straight into that, Urooj, and you can carry on. We did a detailed analysis with Harmy on our pre-show today. We also did quite an exhaustive analysis about Pakistan's bowlers and how there is a collective challenge here. It's not just about Afridi or Haris Rauf who've had forgettable World Cups. But let's talk about their batting now, which has done extraordinary things like chase a record score against Sri Lanka and effectively win a game where they were forced to chase 400 against New Zealand. And yet it let them down against India. It's let them down today. There are a number of other games we can pick up and say they could have got more. When you speak of trying to become relevant again, what does it Pakistan need to do if you're to make a 3-point plan? Take it away.
I mean, I think to start with, it needs to be said that unpredictability is not a strength. And I think that's something that Pakistan need to change. And that can only come with firstly acknowledging the problems that they have. The Pakistan, the way they bat, you can clearly see a gulf of intent when it comes to, say, the likes of the Indians, the South Africans, Australians, New Zealand, in fact, all the entire 4 teams that are ahead in this World Cup. Even England, the intent that they bat with has to be sort of with the times, with the game. The Pakistan way is obviously taking your time, buying into the first 30, 35 overs of the game, keeping wickets in hand, and then blasting off towards the back end. That clearly isn't showing results. The top order we saw struggle to get runs, barring Fakhar Zaman. The top 5, 6 have a set way to play where they take their time, they bat into the innings, and they almost let the game slip away. It was I think the 20th over where the run rate had already jumped to 8+. So that intent and that approach in the batting will have to change, and that will have to come with a mindset change, where the Pakistan players will have to acknowledge that the way that they are playing is probably not effective, is not going to win them consistent games, and that will have to change. Pakistan struggled to play spin. Now, coming from a subcontinent side which has produced quality spinners and players who've played spin quite well, that show off against spinners, the batting against the spinners has been a massive letdown as well. And also, I think Pakistan in that middle order is obviously lacking a game changer, a finisher, somebody the likes of Maxwell, Klaasen, and Ben Stokes. You can have so many names in that. So it's not one issue. It's a collective mindset change that will have to sort of remodify itself. But I really feel it starts from acknowledging that there is a problem. I think that is where Pakistan need to sit down. I don't think faces need to change too much because we've still got a core group which has a good 4, 5, 6 years of cricket in it. But it's been the same results. It's been the same results in World Cups. It's just been different faces with similar problems over the past, 2015 World Cup, 2017 World Cup, and now 2023. So I think there's a lot that Pakistan need to identify and rectify. With having some open and honest conversations and evaluations going into the next 4-year cycle, for which they need to start preparation today because they don't play another World Cup till November of 2024.
Yeah, very interesting that, given Urooj saying that there's still a young group, they could still play a lot together, and it doesn't necessarily need a change of personnel, not sweeping changes that perhaps may come with England, looking at where those players are in their career. But as I look at that batting lineup, Hami, Rizwan and Babar are still relevant T20 batters at the top of the order. Fakhar Zaman, one of the standout batters, has effectively played 4 games. He was dropped. Abdullah Shafiq looks like one of their finds, but he plays a certain way. And we like how Iftikhar plays, it's just not happened enough. So it's the same group of players, and yet there is a problem with the intended approach. Not an easy fix though, is it?
No, it's not an easy fix, and it's one, I think if what we sometimes get with the sort of the roadshow of Pakistan is when they don't have a good time, it's a wholesale change from the top, from the board to the coach to the captain, and I think that would be wrong. Looking from the outside, that would be wrong. There's some talented players in there. They've got a bowling attack who possibly just need to learn how to bowl together, with each other from either end and understand what other people's strengths are to make sure that comes with a combination. They need to find a spinner very, very quickly who they can hang their hat on. He is my man. He's my Adil Rashid. He's my Adam Zampa. He's my Nathan Santa. He is my man to hang your hat on that can bowl 10 overs without any challenges whatsoever, and then just put little pieces together. Confidence, I think, is huge in Pakistan cricket. And you've mentioned the names there. They're talented players. Possibly one player in the batting order that could go in at the top of the order. Maybe Abdullah Shafiq come one more down, and then Babar at 4, Rizwan at 5, Iftikhar at 6. And if you had somebody else with force at the top of the order to go with Fakhar Zaman, then all of a sudden you're putting teams under pressure in that power play. And I think that, for me, would be a small solution to something that potentially is going. And that's just 3 things: bowlers bowling together, find a spinner that you can hang your hat on, possibly somebody to go in the power play with Fakhar Zaman to go with intent to help the middle order play the way they play.
Yeah, I guess that point that you started with, Urooj, that's what the Pakistan fans would also be wondering. Will there be retribution after this? Will we see coach sacked, director sacked, captain perhaps removed? And is that a possibility in the near future? Is that something you would advise right now? There will be questions asked of Babar whether he's the right man. His own batting form has dipped. He's not had the World Cup of the high standards that we expect Babar Azam to. So should Babar Azam continue as captain? Should someone else be captain and free up Babar to just be the batter that we know he can be? Where do you stand on what changes should be coming in, what shouldn't?
I think to start with, Pakistan needs to have professionals at the helm of affairs of the board who can run cricket and not a circus to start with. I think once that is sorted, I don't think the faces within the team need to change. I think this group needs to be given a long run because there is quality. They have done fantastic things in the past. It's just the way they are playing is just not stringing together nicely. So I wouldn't really like to see any changes. You don't need to sack anybody at the moment because they've got a tough Australian tour up ahead. The last thing you want, and this is very this happens in Pakistan, and history will tell you that everybody gets sacked and then you send a fresh young team into Australia, into the deep end. They don't do well and you go back 2 steps and get everybody else back in. That's the last thing what Pakistan want. You need to stick to this core group. Obviously, it is red ball in Australia with the 3 tests, but you stick to the core group. You obviously identify the issues. Like Steve said, the frontline quality spinner, we've been harping about that since the Asia Cup. Pakistan not having a fast bowling all-rounder since the likes of, say, Azhar Mahmood and Abdul Razak. That is a massive concern as well. The batting intent, yes, that is a massive concern as well. And obviously, then bowling and partnership. So all of that, and those aren't issues that we haven't been able to identify. Those were sort of glaring there in your face. So I don't really think the change of personnel fixes any of this because the problems have been similar in the past for Pakistan. So it's the problems that need to change, and how Pakistan do that will take some honest reflection on what they've performed, and that mindset will have to change in terms of what the game needs at the moment and what Pakistan really needs in order to be a consistent contender for this World Cup, not someone who obviously carries a tag of unpredictability, does something like that, what Fakhar Zaman did in the 400 game versus New Zealand, and then obviously still not make it to the semi-finals. So I really think there are problems which can be sorted. I don't think it requires a personnel change, though.
If you look at Babar, for example, in leadership and him being captain, if you look at the tournament as a whole, you go, Rohit Sharma has had a great tournament. He's top of the tree. His team's number 1. Australia, Pat Cummins has done quite well. His form's been okay. Bavuma's in a semi-final. He hasn't had a great World Cup. Yeah. Williamson's in the semi-final, hardly played, but Latham, when he was captain, had a real struggle.
Yes.
Joss has had a struggle.
But I'd argue Pat Cummins hasn't had a great World Cup either, to be frank.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Babar's had a struggle.
Yes,
these captains who have captained their, Mendes, you look at
Butler, Mendes.
So captains, in more often than not, in this tournament, out of 10 teams, you're probably looking at 6 captains who, whether their team's done well or they haven't, they've had a little bit of a shocker themselves. So it's not just Babar who has struggled as a leadership point of view in this World Cup.
Yeah, I guess there'll also be a question of the best man for the job at this point. And, Urooj, maybe you can weigh in on this too. I thought Shadab Khan was the heir apparent or the vice captain if they wanted a viable option. Where in the Indian team, you tend to have a number of people who are ready to be captain. So if Virat Kohli calls it time. There's Rohit Sharma in the waiting, and that almost succession seems seamless. It's not quite as straightforward, even if, say, for instance, Babar says, yeah, I want to focus on my batting. Do they have a viable alternative?
Yeah, I think it's a two-pronged discussion. I mean, is it a case where Babar does feel that the captaincy pressure is weighing on to my batting, and that's why I want to step down? And then it should be the case, because I think Babar as a batter is more important and vital to Pakistan in the entire structure of it than Babar as the captain. And you've seen Babar as a captain. He has obviously improved, but there are obviously weaknesses that come with him. Now, the other discussion is who in succession. You could argue Shaheen Shah Afridi because he captains Lahore Qalandars. You could say there's a Rizwan who captains the Multan Sultan. Both have won titles in, again, the 20 version of the game. The ODI version is slightly different. It just doesn't play out because in the T20 version, you've got those matchups. It's a smaller game. Mostly the momentum of the game just carries through. The ODI version is slightly more important. So I just feel Pakistan can maybe earmark or identify one of the youngsters that are bleeding through, somebody who has the captaincy attributes, and groom them along the way and not necessarily remove Babar at the moment. Because I really don't think Rizwan is somebody who obviously completely sticks his hand out and says he will be your next captain. I think they're all pretty much in the same boat. So maybe continue with Babar, although his captaincy needs attention, and that is something that the Pakistan Cricket Board can provide with on the other side in terms of what leadership skills can do and how he can improve on that side of it. But earmark someone for the future, not just one, maybe 2 or 3 players who can then pick up the mantle going forward into when Babar does step down, or obviously it comes to a point where he shouldn't be carrying on. But if it is a case of Babar, which in his own words is not, because we heard his press conference the other day, he said, there is no captaincy pressure on me and I don't think about it when I'm batting. So if you look at it from Babar's point of view, I don't think captaincy is letting him down. But there was obviously a massive failure on his batting. But he doesn't owe it to captaincy pressure. So I think there needs to be some sort of a sensible approach to it rather than just sacking Babar for the sake of sacking him, because I really don't see a captain who's right there in your face, who can lead Pakistan, who's by far an obvious choice at the moment.
Right, absolutely well put and point well taken. We've done a very exhaustive review of England on our pre-show today. You must catch that. Steve Harmison's written on his roadmap for the squad that he thinks should go to the Caribbean, players they can build around. And you've heard from Urooj Mumtaz now what the road ahead looks like for Pakistan with 2 teams that have had a tough World Cup. I think our guests too can get tired of repeating themselves, and it's never easy to repeat yourselves when the team's not doing well. But maybe we end on a sweeter note and we think of the positives that worked for England, that they can certainly build on. Firstly, you can also spend some time on David Willey here. That's a nice story, isn't it, for a player that's not had an easy career?
No, he's not had an easy career. He got shunted out of the team for Jofra Archer during the 2019 World Cup. Had to watch his teammates, a lot of them who he grew up with, go and pick that winner's medal up and get paraded. So I'm pleased for him. He got 100 ODI wickets during this game, 10 overs, 3 for 56, 100 wickets in there. Only 14 people for England who have done that, and it's an exceptional achievement in itself. He's had, I think, he's one of these characters who loves a contest. And that's the beauty about David Willey for me. When there's a contest going on, he puffs his chest out, whether he's got bat in hand or he's got ball in hand. And for me, he never lets England down when England go to him. They haven't always gone to him, and that's not always been his choice. It's not always been a negative from David's point of view. But he ends his career on a high. I think he's been one of the better players during this World Cup, shall we say. Yeah. He'll be disappointed at the outcome, but at the end of the day, I think for me, he can be proud of his achievements of representing England. The times he's nearly 75 times in ODI cricket. For me, he's been somebody who every time England have gone to him, he's never looked at it, what you did to me in the past. Yeah. He's always done, this is my opportunity to put my name in lights, and that for me is a nice way to go out for David Willey.
Other positives in this, though, it's only been the 3 wins, so it can be hard.
Yeah.
But if we try and take some time and think back, either for Adil Rashid, the bowler, Gus Atkinson, a little bit of Harry Brook that we've seen. We haven't seen a lot, but just positives for you? Yeah,
Harry Brook got some game time. Atkinson looks as though he's got a very, very intelligent brain when it comes to bowling point of view, and I'd love to see him bowl with somebody like Mark Wood and and Jofra Archer at the other end, because I think that would help him out no end pace-wise. We have got a special bowler, and he's going to take some replacing. And I think we now have to wrap Adil Rashid up in cotton wool to get him through the next world events, because I think if you look through the team, you go through the team, Bairstow might not play, Milan probably won't, Root might not play, Stokes won't, Butler will, Ali won't, Wokes might not, Willie definitely won't. You look at that, every single one of them names I've mentioned, I could probably find you a replacement or two, that younger model that potentially could come in and keep the mentality of this team going. I'm not sure I can say that about Adil Rashid, and that is the biggest compliment I can play him. He's an absolute superstar, and for me he's been the shining light of the World Cup, which has not been a bright light, shall I say, from an England point of view.
Yes.
For somebody that every time he's bowled his 10 overs, he stood up and fighted for this country.
Yeah, you can sense that this is disappointing, but this has also been a pioneering generation of English cricketers who bossed this format of the game for the last 5-6 years, possibly more, and this has just not been their World Cup. Perhaps easier to pick some positives for Urooj Mumtaz from a Pakistan point of view. I mean, a smile comes to my face when I think of Rizwan limping his way to a ridiculous 100, which seems like a lifetime ago, against Sri Lanka. Fakhar Zaman doing Fakhar Zaman things. They had their moments. Mohammad Wasim Jr.'s come in. Abdullah Shafiq's done quite well. Urooj, positives for you, if you have to pick among those or even beyond?
Yeah, I think so. I think, again, there is one, again, on one foot, getting through that big 100 of his. Fakhar Zaman coming good when the team required him and coming good in some quite spectacular fashion. Again, those two are pedigree players, experienced players, and you expect it from them. So that was obviously very good, and Fakhar carried form till the last game as well, New Zealand 400. That will probably be a highlight of Pakistan's World Cup. But I think in terms of the youngsters coming to the party, Saud Shakil will probably go under the radar, but I thought he played some very smart, calculated knocks in that middle period of the game where Pakistan obviously lost early wickets. His spin playing ability better, obviously can improve. Abdullah Shafiq, for me, I think has been a revelation in Pakistan's batting, a find of the tournament. He looks cool, calm and collected. Obviously not afraid to take the game on. We saw that in a few games as well, where he didn't shy away from, I think it was Australian quick bowlers and their bounces. And he has been probably the most consistent scorer. And he looked very much at ease in a pressure World Cup. So I think that was good. Salman Ali Agha today, impressive. He does play spin well. Not too much as bowling, but I think in that middle 4, 5, 6 position he comes in. And Wasim Jr. probably again highlight with the ball, with his control with the reverse, important wickets, good fielder as well. So I think that Pakistan do have positives to take out, but they're obviously in patches and far and few in between. So, but again, nonetheless, it's not all sort of black across the canvas for them. But yes, going further, there's a lot that needs to be done if Pakistan want to actually become champions.
Yep, and on that sweeter note is where England and Pakistan shall bid this tournament goodbye, and where I must give my heartfelt appreciation to both Stephen Harmison and Urooj Mumtaz for being wonderful right through a tough tournament, as it may have been. But Harmy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in studio.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure being here, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely our pleasure. Urooj, would have loved to have you. Hopefully in some time we'll get you from that screen, pull you out, put you on a chair here, put you under the spotlight. But it's been terrific hearing you right through the tournament. So thank you so much to Dr. Urooj Mumtaz as well.
Yeah, thanks, Raunak. Thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure, great company, and as always, great chats.
Absolutely, and I'm sure it's only until we meet again.
Yes,
which will be very soon, very soon indeed. You know, it does. It's a bit sad, not because I've grown fond of Harmy and Urooj, but from a neutral point of view, England and Pakistan in World Cup semi-finals just adds a blockbuster element to it. Nothing against New Zealand. I love New Zealand. Everyone loves New Zealand, and everyone loves the South Africans. But you want England and Pakistan to at least compete more for that race to the semis to be so. Until next time, you are the last T20 World Cup final, so you're fine, both of you. Thank you so much to all of you as well. It was a tough campaign for England and Pakistan. There'll be plenty written and said, and Harmy and Urooj have discussed a number of things on our show, so go back to any of those videos, including today's pre-show where we have discussed England in detail, as well as Pakistan's bowling in our mid-innings show. I will be back for one last league game on Sunday, on Diwali, for Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. Do download the mobile app. India and the Netherlands will close things off in Bengaluru tomorrow. And yes, like I mentioned, but for an extraordinary result if the Dutch manage to get the points. Bangladesh have just squeezed through, courtesy the result earlier today on this double-header Saturday. One game to go, then the semis and the final. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Stunning looks. The Swift.